Welcome to Know Happiness, a podcast around how we seek, find, and sustain happiness in some of the most unusual places. Today, I'm joined with Faye Khoury. She's also known as the Monti Mama, certified Montessori teacher, neuroscience-informed parent coach, student of biblical psychology, mother of 5 in a blended family, and to add to the latest edition of her repertoire, it includes author of Montessori as a Lifestyle. Welcome, Faye.
Thanks, Lindsay.
I meant to put on their friend.
Yeah. Besties.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know I was thinking today, like in my intro, we have lived so much life together. And when we first met back in the Halloween parties, if we knew that later in life we'd be sitting here chatting over some microphones, we'd be like, what?
Yeah. Oh, I agree. It's been quite a journey. I mean, how long have we known each other? Like 10 years? 10, 11 years? I mean, I was maid of honor in your wedding.
Like no big deal, right?
Yeah.
Maid of honor in my wedding.
Yeah, and yours, you and mine.
Yeah.
So we've had a lot of history.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have.
Well, it's about time. I finally got you in here.
Yes.
And I'm really glad that we can highlight you and all the amazing things that you have been doing. But before we get into that, I want to ask you what I ask all my guests, and that is, what is happiness to you?
My version of happiness right now, and what I've grown into understanding through my life, is connection. Connection with my family and my friends. It gives deeper purpose. It's the mornings where you wake up and you see your family or your kids and you say, good morning, how are you? It's the little moments of the giggles and the pitter-patters of the feet running across the floor. It's the, hey, mommy, look what I made you. It's the sad moments too, the tears, the comforting, and the growing in deep connection with each other. And when I find that makes me feel rich in life.
It really sounds to me like it's your why, you know, like your family and friendships, your connections with people are your why. What makes you get up in the morning? And I can really appreciate that. I've certainly gotten to deal with the not having children that don't really necessarily need a lot of the day-to-day things. And you're in a different season in your life.
Yes.
Mainly. You do have a teen. But you kind of got to do a do-over here with young kids again.
We did.
Yeah. And so I think for me, learning to find my why has been quite an experience, quite a journey, because your kids, the job that we have is to prepare them to leave the nest, right?
Right, absolutely.
But nobody really prepares you for how that's going to feel as they start pulling away and you creating distance so that they can and are ready to fly the nest,
Right, it's like a hope and a prayer. Oh,
yeah.
I hope I did good.
Yeah.
Here we go.
It's interesting. I thought about how we have 18 years with our kids, right? Mm-hmm. Where we are in that parental figure. And we'll always be a parental figure. But really after 18, or especially after they graduate college, it becomes a friendship. You have a deep friendship with these once babies are now grown adults that go off and have their own children and marriage and all the things that come along with adulthood. And so it's been interesting to navigate those waters in being able to build a friendship with my children before they turn 18. And I have my husband to thank for that, because I was raised with a mom that was very rigid and we don't drink, we don't do this, we don't do that. And I understand.
You do this because I told you so.
Right.
I'm the mom. I'm
Right.
the parent. You listen to me.
Yeah.
Right.
And so really, and this is not a fault of hers or a knock at her, but it just taught me to get really good at lying and sneaking and deceiving.
Right.
And so It's been fun to find a healthy balance of, being a safe space for my kids to be able to come to me, to talk to me about anything that comes up without fear of reprisal, right? So I hope that is your experience, because it has really been awesome to step into that parenting role with them, friendship. So
Absolutely.
for listeners meeting you for the first time, who is Faye beyond the titles, beyond just Montessori and coaching?
Faye. First and foremost, I definitely pride myself as a mom. Really growing up in my younger adult years, I didn't think I was going to have kids. I think I was so broken inside. I didn't want children. And my younger self would be kind of laughing at me now, like, oh, you have 5 kids? Are you serious? Like, huh?
Right.
So it's kind of, things are put in our lives and happen in our lives to help us grow and to learn. And that's, my children is where I have grown and learned the most in my life. It has stretched me in so many ways, especially in a blended family. That's a whole other dynamic that people that don't live it just don't quite get.
Right.
There's so many other moving parts than the nuclear family. So I have 5 children, 4, 7, 15, 17, and 18. So we're sending one to college next year, and I still have one at home yelling in the bathroom, Mom, come wipe my butt. So, it's a very special season in our lives.
Yeah.
But it's fun.
Yeah. Well, what's funny to me is I think of like the 2 relationships in a person's life that are the biggest mirrors and biggest triggers are being in an intimate relationship and parenting. And they are the things that bring out all of your shit, all of your unhealed wounds.
All the shit.
Yeah. And how...
Literally wiping shit.
Yeah. How we can, if we're not conscious in our parenting or in a relationship, how easily we project our own shit on our kids. And it's like if we don't break those generational curses and cycles, it just continues. So like no extra pressure, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. No big deal.
Yeah.
We're just, creating the next generation of humans that are going to be contributing to the world.
Right.
No big deal.
Right.
Yeah.
And, the reality is we are going to fuck up our kids a little bit. There is no perfect parent out there. And even just like the smallest little things for a kid, they can internalize and it turn into this huge wound, just by their perception of what you were saying. You may not have even meant it, but that's how they heard it. That's how they internalized it. And then that's what they became. And so no matter how or what you do, there's always going to be something with your kids that they have picked up from you or your parenting,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I know, since we've been friends, I know you lost your father when you were 12. Can you just take us back to that season in your life and how it has shaped you today?
When my father died when I was 12, really at the same time I lost my mom. She was just grief-stricken, and I resented her for that for years. She was not there like she had been. Really, I always explain my mom in my early childhood years as Betty Crocker. She was making her own bread. My parents were organic before organic was even a thing. They were so conscious, and parents that embodied like love and compassion and empathy. And I lost both of them kind of at the same time. She, quickly found someone else after my father and was kind of gone and in and out and inconsistent. So I just remember thinking, it was me and my sister, and she's just a few years younger than me. And I'm like, I have to step up. I have to be here to make sure my sister's okay. Now I'm a 12-year-old, 13, 14, 15, 16. This goes into my early adulthood, trying to just like navigate, how do I make sure my sister is alive at the end of the day? But also I was given so much freedom and independence. So I can't even imagine for her what that really, what that looked like.
Yeah.
It was great at the time. As a teenager, like, I get to do whatever I want.
Go to Faye's house.
Woo! Yeah, it was the place to be.
Yeah, I bet.
And yeah, it was great. But now I look back and I'm like, man, I was tough.
Yeah.
I was navigating so much hurt and pain on my own and my sister, and it made me grow up really fast.
Yeah, I was just getting ready to say, from like where I see in my perspective is you were catapulted into a role you didn't choose, all while dealing with your own grief. That is an enormous amount to put on a child, because you were a child, and yet. I think of in my own examples, and I definitely know this with you, that while that was really an unfair situation to be put on you, it has created an extremely independent and self-sufficient, mature young lady, you know?
Well, thank you.
Yeah. You know?
Yes, it did at a very, very early age. I always was reaching for the next best thing in a young career and trying to one-up myself. I really did just pull up my bootstraps and I went for it. And that was kind of what gave me structure, was going into my work life and finding something in management that gave me something to rely on, because I didn't have that.
Yeah.
And so that was my focus, and that's what kept me going. I have a really good friend that she's told me, and she knows, just like you, the depths of everything that happened through a lot of those years. And she was like, man, it is really amazing you didn't end up being an alcoholic or a drug addict or something, because you had every opportunity.
Yeah.
But I found that structure that my personality really needed in my work life. And I think that was kind of something that saved me.
Yeah. Well, I'm super proud of you. I think that what you went through is nothing short of miraculous. And, I think back to my teenage years and we know how that ended. And so I'm just so grateful that you made that, not only made it through, but like it molded and shaped the human being and the mother that you are today. Because I know you as a mother, and you are very hands-on. And like, to me, and I have a lot of empathy for your mother. I know her, and
Absolutely. Mama J, everyone calls her that.
I know that this was the love of her life. I think about like how, if Scott and I were much younger and we had young kids, how I would deal with that.
Absolutely.
And so there is zero judgment. And I think it's really cool too that you and your mom have found forgiveness. I know that wasn't initially the easiest relationship to find forgiveness in, but she's there for you now,
Yes, she is, and that's something I'm so grateful for. And that just also shows such a testimony of the body remembers safety. My mom was safety growing up as a child, and when she finally came back into my life, I was able to let go of my resentment and my anger and my hate for her. And she has done so much more than I could have ever imagined to be the mom that I've needed.
Yeah.
And a great grandmother, me mom, that just goes above and beyond for my kids.
Well, I think that's really wonderful too. Like, I think that way about my mom, especially because she was working all the time. I spent an awful lot of time alone at very young ages, and she was just doing the best that she could. But man, is she an amazing grandmother, And so I think we find a lot of forgiveness through watching them with our children. There can be a lot of healing in that capacity.
It's a beautiful thing to have.
Thank you for sharing that part of you. I think it's important in understanding who you are, and, is clearly about where you've been, right?
Yes.
So looking back as a parent, how do you see that early loss influencing the way you approached control, structure, or protection in your own home?
I definitely came out as, I want my children to feel safe and secure. And if I'm being honest, in a lot of ways that came in the form of control for me as an early parent. I've had so many phases of parenting with a large age gap, and I've learned from each and every of those children. and it has changed so much. Like the parent I was with my first child all the way now to the last 9-day.
Yeah.
And, you know, like I said, they've grown me the most. You know, for example, my 3 older children, when they were younger, I was very into trying to teach them to be independent. The things I wish I knew how to do when I was in my teenage years. For example, folding towels. That was something my mom did teach me. And it was a very specific way of folding towels. And it was handed down from my grandmother and her grandmother. So it was like this story. I don't know why this is something that's always stuck with me, how to fold a towel this specific way. But I was teaching my children how to do it, and they just couldn't get it. And I would snap at them. I would get so upset about it.
How do you not know how to do this?
I would just like pull them all. I'm like, I look back at myself like, that is ridiculous. But there was a moment finally where I realized, what does it matter if the towels are folded a certain way? And I realized this is something about me. And I finally started to let go of certain things. It had to be done a certain way. No, it does not. The fact is that children are capable, and that's what I was teaching them to be. Not how to fold a towel perfectly. Yeah. It's they have that independence and the will to be independent. And that's what I was trying to teach. And when I found Montessori, that gave me the language for those things that I had started so early on with them and didn't understand it.
Sure.
So capabilities, independence, and building that inner confidence, that inner voice of I can do it. That's what I was really looking for, but it wasn't until I started to let go of my control and the need for things to be a certain way did I really find that to be what I wanted it to be.
Well, I think that, first of all, it's great that you can see how you've progressed as a parent and the things that, you know, you initially were doing. And I bring up Ella all the time, my daughter, in that she got a different parent. It's a 7-year swing between my children. And
oh, Ella.
I know. And so from the outside looking in, especially from her perspective as a teenager and early adulthood, it's kind of like, well, she must have favored Calder because, you know, she did
better with him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
yes,
but
it's a real reality.
Yeah. So I think it's important for other women, especially, to know and to have forgiveness and give themselves some grace that when you know better, you do better, hopefully, right?
You don't know until you know.
Right.
And life is a journey.
Yes.
It does not end.
Yeah. There's no finish line.
There is eventually, but yeah.
So how did Montessori first enter your world, and what did you initially think that it was? Because I know there's like a lot of preconceptions around what Montessori is. You know, I think of like really granola-y, like hippie kind of parents that are like, that's how I think some perception is on the outside world. So share with me about Montessori.
Yeah. Yes, that was my first experiences. It's crunchy moms with this beautiful little playroom that they found a perfect Pinterest photo and replicated it with this, you know, beige playroom or the shelf and all the perfect little toys and everything is perfect. And that's what drew me in.
I was going to say, that's perfect.
It drew me in. And I was like, that's beautiful. Right? I love that. But it was pretty quickly when I set up the shelf and I was so excited. And I didn't find Montessori really until Pierce, my 7-year-old. And I set it up. I watched him. He walked towards it and he climbed it. Like it was a mountain or something. I was like, what am I doing wrong here? And I was like, okay. So it got me curious. Like how are these children on Instagram or whatever? They look like little monks sitting in their playrooms playing so quietly. What is to this? What am I doing wrong? And that's what led me to knowing more and wanting to gain more, because my personality type, I am a researcher. So when I find something interested in, I do like these deep dives and like obsess about it. So that's what I did with Montessori, and here I am.
You're so funny because like I'm the complete opposite. I'm like, that looks good. Jump in.
Let's do it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm married to a man that is a thorough researcher.
Yeah, so you know,
I got
you're
somebody
yin-yang.
to do
It's
it
good.
for me. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
when did you realize that Montessori wasn't about the shelf or the wooden toys, but about something much deeper?
Well, definitely when my child climbed it, I was like, well, I'm doing something wrong here. So, that's what drew me in, but learning more and understanding the depth in which child development runs, and understanding that as a parent, it really grew me in a whole nother way, because I wasn't just telling my child what to do anymore. I understood what they're capable of. I think in this modern society, we have these expectations of children, like adult expectations, like you should know better, or they know better than that, or they're trying to manipulate me. And through Montessori, I understood from her findings that they have incredibly intricate developmental planes. And when you understand what they're capable at different times of their life, you're able to support them in those areas to help them grow the fastest or the most.
I love that. To me, what it sounds like is you're really maximizing their capabilities at a young age. And I think that sets them up for great success as they get older, and that, they realize they're far more capable than their buddies,
Right.
that aren't participating.
And it's not that they're smarter or
Right.
advanced or anything. It's that we treat them in the home as capable little humans that can contribute and be a part of the culture in the home.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. So once you became a lead teacher, what did observing children every day reveal to you about what they really are capable of? We talk about capabilities. I'd love to know some examples for those who don't really know a whole lot about Montessori.
Yeah. Children will rise to the level of responsibility that we give them. And like I was saying, they're so much more capable. For example, my daughter, Vivian, by the time she was 1, she was dressing herself. She would wake up in the morning, we had her clothes laid out, she'd know what to do, and she loved doing that. It wasn't that I was just leaving her by the wayside, like, figure it out.
Make yourself breakfast.
She felt confident and capable, and she would come downstairs so happy, like, good morning, and you could just tell that, like, glowing joy of, hey, I did this on my own. It was such a big deal. Or, the crazy outfits she'll put together.
Right.
That's been fun. My son Pierce, he was cutting bananas and strawberries and things by like about 2, and obviously with my supervision.
Sure.
But children watch us in the home. And you ever notice or remember when your kids would just like kind of follow you around and you're like, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. It's because they want to know what we're doing. They want to be doing what we're doing. And we treat them like, you're incapable, you can't do that, or like not giving them opportunity. Well, why not? It's an opportunity for connection. Mm-hmm. When you have those moments of teaching them independence, how to cut something, how to put something away, how to put their shirt on. That's connection that you get to gain in those moments of helping them learn to be a human.
Okay, so let me ask you this. With you and the perfectionism that you've struggled with throughout life, what do you do when they come down? I would imagine it's just really important to not say, oh, well, that's not the right way. That doesn't go together. How do you navigate when your child's not doing something the right way, but they're doing it themselves? How does that work?
So Montessori language is we don't correct in those situations. We would wait till another time to maybe like show them how to do it again.
Okay.
Or it doesn't create shame or, hey, you did it wrong. It makes them feel like not good enough.
Yeah.
And enough of that, an overcorrected child creates anxious children. Mm-hmm. And so if my kid puts their shirt on backwards, do I say anything about it anymore? No. Did the old me? Yes.
Yeah.
You got your shirt on backwards. You look ridiculous. Well, now I'm just like, oh, you got your shirt on. Great. And then we move on. The other day, Vivian had her hoodie on backwards and then her pants on backwards. We were walking around Target like it was no big deal because what does it matter?
Right.
They did it on their own.
I think that is an amazing thing to teach kids, because I think of like Scott and his dad always had the best intentions and wanted to teach him things. And he talks about he'd be assisting with fixing a car, and his dad would have him do it and then would get frustrated and say, I'm just going to do it, get out of here. I've got it, because he had not learned that And as a result, Scott doesn't want anything to do with home repair, fixing of anything. I mean, so it really taught him the opposite of what he was ideally hoping, right?
Right. Yeah. It shut him down. It taught him, you know what, I'm not needed.
Yeah.
It creates hesitation when we overcorrect and just keep nitpicking the things that what doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Now, if it comes to danger, sure, let's correct it right away. Like, please don't fall down those stairs.
Yeah.
But absolutely.
So what happens developmentally when we consistently step in too quickly? Kind of like what we were just talking about with the correction, but this is like stepping in too quickly.
Right. A lot of parents these days in modern society, I think we're in such a rush all the time that we're just like, let me do it. It's going to be faster. But what you're doing is interrupting your child's brain development. Some parents also, I have found, need to be needed. And, and that is something that when we look inwards, we can start to understand why that is from our own childhoods. But that is also taking away that confidence and opportunity for the child to develop mentally and spiritually, really. When a child is able to attempt things, it creates the dopamine release, and that's something that they need for that loop to continue, and that creates that intrinsic motivation and confidence for the child growing up to want to keep trying, to want to keep doing, because when you just jump in all the time, they're being told, you can't do that.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And this has been something I've struggled with my kids, and either doing something just for them, and a lot of it's just subconsciously,
right?
And then when I really strip it away, I realize that, like, if I make myself indispensable, then they'll never leave. They can't abandon me, and that's old shit from my childhood. And the truth is, I need to prepare them. So that's been a big learning lesson for me, is starting to put responsibilities on them. Like, you need to figure it out. What do you think you need to do for that?
Yeah, asking the right questions. How do you get to doing this? Yeah. And then guiding them through it instead of doing it for them. That's great that you're finding that.
I am.
You go, girl.
You can teach an old dog new tricks. So you've often said that contribution creates belonging. What does that look like in your home?
In the home, as us humans, we're wired to contribute. We want to feel a part of things. We want community. And when we let our children participate, they get to be a part of that. And that creates a belonging. And that looks like in the home, like letting them, for example, when they're small, young little toddlers, wipe the table. Go pick that up off the floor. Let's put it in the trash. It's so simple. It's not like it's
age appropriate.
Yeah, it's not some grandioso thing. It's just these daily movements that they're going to be doing for the rest of their lives, but you're letting them do it instead of just picking everything up for them or wiping everything down. You're letting them be about a part of the process of family culture.
Yeah, well, and that makes sense because you think about, like, sense of purpose as, we retire and we get to that point where it's time to no longer do our purpose.
Yeah.
People have a tendency to wither up, like it is so important that we have some kind of contribution daily, no matter how big or small it is, for the rest of our lives. So good for you for starting that early.
Yeah. Contribution, it activates pathways in the brain, and it just keeps that brain development growing, especially when they're younger in that 0 to 6 age.
Yeah. So Marie Montessori said, do not do for the child what they can do for themselves. Why is this idea so powerful and yet so misunderstood?
Many people think that this is withholding help, and it's not. Again, it's teaching them that they're capable and having confidence in doing the basic things of being a human. The goal is development, not efficiency, not perfection, just doing. Those processes in Montessori are so important. For example, I always like to explain it to parents that little children have all these thoughts and things going on in their heads, like a little tornado of emotions and feelings and thoughts and this and that. And Montessori and processes in the home and as a family help create filing cabinets through the years to file all those thoughts and thinking away in a purposeful way. And so it creates organization of the mind.
I would not have known that.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I can see why you value this and have chosen to teach your youngest this pathway.
Yes.
Makes a lot of sense. Montessori was ahead of her time. What did she understand about child development that neuroscience is now confirming today?
Yeah. Maria Montessori was a scientist, and she was the first to study thousands of children and develop a whole method around their development. And she found that there's sensitive periods for children. So there's certain stages where the child is very intrinsically interested in certain things. So for example, children lining up things in a row, that's a sense of order in a way. Putting things away, repetition of different things in the home. You know, I've caught my two youngest, and now that I understand these things, doing different things and over and over and over, because repetition creates strength in those brain pathways. And I'm like, what is going on? I'm like, oh, it's a sensitive period. And then once the brain gets enough of whatever that is, all of a sudden they just stop. It's like, what? Wait, why aren't you doing that anymore? So that's one of the things that she found, and it's very interesting when you understand that, because you can kind of see this like growth in these different areas. She also found the absorbent mind, which is ages 0 to 6. Children in this age tend to absorb the environment, not just what's going on around them, but also emotionally. And there's no effort in this. It just becomes a part of who they are, their foundation of their life. You know, between 7 or 8 is when our brain changes to the reasoning mind, like what me and you have. Mm-hmm. And for someone like me that would really love to learn Spanish, it's incredibly hard, and I keep giving up. So, but if I had learned Spanish maybe at 0 to 6, it would become a part of me. And that's why a lot of people do learn or have their children learn languages much earlier on, because it's so much easier.
Right.
They might be a little bit delayed on one or the other, but in the end, it becomes a part of who they are, and it's effortless for them.
Yeah. Well, that magical age you're talking about is, you know, when kids have these imaginations and anything is possible, and you ask them what they want to be when they grow up, and it's an astronaut or the president, you know, and then like little by little, the world starts chipping away. And they flip into that rational brain, and it's like all that goes away. And like it's so cool to start that people have caught on to like that notion that like, no, we need to protect and nurture that innocence and imagination for as long as you possibly can.
Keep our children as long as we can.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's one of my mottos.
Yes. Well, and honestly, you know, for parents who didn't grow up in a regulated or emotionally safe home, what's the hopeful truth about healing and repair as you're going into this endeavor with Montessori?
I think, personally, what I have experienced is I'm healing alongside my children. And people, I think, are just kind of starting to understand that this is a thing. Like, this is the first time I've been a mom at this very age right now, okay? Mm-hmm. You know, we're always talking about, oh, it's our child's first step, it's our child's first that, but like us as parents, this is our first too. And it's not like we have some perfect guide to go by. And that's why this work is so important to me, is we can always go back to connection. We can always go back to, how are we talking to our children? How are we handling situations? Are we flipping our lid and freaking out because the towel was folded wrong?
Right.
Or are we going to just say, hey, you did it, and you move on?
Yeah.
And that shows the connection and the capability within your relationship with your child.
Yeah, and I think it's important to add that if and when we do lose our shit, or we don't follow the path or the suggestions, to have grace for ourselves and remind one another that like, oh my gosh, I am a human being.
Yes.
And I'm not going to do this perfectly. It's kind of like what we were talking about at the very beginning, you know, that like every parent's going to screw up.
Absolutely.
Take a little of the pressure off of doing everything perfectly.
And yes, and repair is one of the strongest tools we have as parents in our toolbox. Repairing with your child and saying, hey, mom didn't didn't handle that well.
Yeah.
I'm going to do better next time. That shows them that you are human too, that you make mistakes and that it's okay to make mistakes.
Yeah.
And that models that behavior for your children, and especially that 0 to 6, it becomes part of them and they know it's okay to make mistakes because we are going to make mistakes the rest of our life.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you know anything about the Gottmans, but they studied marriage and relationships, and they talk about, it is inevitable that you will fight and argue in a marriage, but that it's how you repair that really is the most important. And that is modeling then, of course, for your kids too. Like every part of our lives are being, like you said, watched and modeled and emulated. And so like learning to acknowledge when we've made a mistake or we've done something that, is not authentic to who we really are, not our highest and truest self with a T. Beep. Yeah. So I think this is kind of fun. Like when you stopped focusing on aesthetic and you started focusing on mindset, what changed in your home?
Well, my house got a little bit messier. And that's another part of me that I've really had to kind of let go. I mean, I have 5 kids.
Yeah.
And at one point, all of them were in the home all the time.
Yeah.
We didn't have all these activities going on the way that we do now. And it was messy.
Yeah.
And I just had, and my husband, I
get it. I've got another child when it comes to that.
Yeah. So really, it created an understanding and a mindset shift of peace. It created more peace for us.
I bet. That's, I'm still live with that. I just yelled at Scott this morning. I just had the house cleaned yesterday. And so it's like, I just want one day where nobody's in the kitchen making messes, so I'm kind of like the warden trying to keep you like, yes, you can be in the kitchen, but do not make anything. And this morning, he I don't know how, but streaks some milk down the fridge, front of the fridge. And I'm like,
Scott the toddler.
I'm like, do you not see that? So that I have yet to let go of.
It's a tough one.
I've gotten better about letting dishes sit in the sink and letting, waiting till one of the kids gets home to unload the dishwasher, versus, I'll just do it because I can't stand it not being done.
Yeah.
I've definitely improved, but there's still plenty of work to do.
Well, good for you.
Yeah.
You're doing it.
If someone feels overwhelmed by all the information online, where should they truly begin? Like, what's a good first step for someone?
Well, they should just get my book. Okay, no, I'm kidding.
Obviously.
I'm a little serious. But I did create this book because of who I was back then when I first started. I wish I had a resource that just gave me these very beginning foundational steps of mindset shift for how to live Montessori in your home as a lifestyle. And because there's so much information out there. You don't know what's real and what's not, what's truly Montessori and what's just Montessori inspired. And once you go down this rabbit hole, you start to understand that there's all these knockoff ideas and things and da-di-da-da-da. So this book that I've created, it goes through these steps as a mindset shift, understanding child's developmental planes and how can we kind of flip some of these scripts of how do we talk to our children in our homes and treat them as capable, independent little humans.
I'm so happy for you. I know over the years it's been a journey of, what is my purpose? What's Faye's purpose? And, I love that you've tried all different things.
I've tried a lot.
You have.
As have
I.
Yeah. Yes,
but
you have.
I feel like this is really something that it's very clear that it lights you up and that you really believe in. And, what better way to sell something when you wholeheartedly believe in what you're selling?
Right. And it's something that I'm doing every day.
Right.
And am I perfect? Absolutely not. And that's okay. I've learned to admit that I am not.
Yeah.
Through this whole process, got to set the pride aside.
Yeah.
I think that understanding just these foundational things it's so important, and that's what I wanted to create for people out there.
Yes. Well, you mentioned about sibling connection, and you've got quite a few. What does learning to disagree while staying connected why does it matter so much today?
I think in this world that we live in right now, there's so much brokenness and disconnection. And to me, that's incredibly important. One, because I'm estranged from my sister right now because of some of that. And it is such a gift in America that we can have our own opinions, beliefs, and feelings about things. And I want my children to know that. But no matter what, at the end of the day, they have each other.
Yeah.
And how we treat them as parents, as siblings, like together as siblings, can shape their bond later in life. And it's a hard subject for me with my sister. I don't want my children to live that.
Yeah.
And there's still hope and there's still love between us, but I think that some of our earlier years in our childhood, after my father passed, that shaped the resilience ability for us as siblings for later in life.
Yeah.
So, when there's disagreement, instead of just cutting each other off, I want my children to be able to work through it and know, hey, I still love you and I'm still here for you. We can think differently and that's okay.
Isn't that wild? Yeah, something my mom would always say to me, because it bothers a mother when their children aren't getting along, their adult children. Right. Obviously in the home it's different, like don't treat your sister like that and don't hit, that's different than adult children.
Right.
But it still is hard for the parent to deal with that, right? And so it always bothered my mom when my brother and I were to have a disagreement or we'd be angry with one another. But the reality is, like, my mom and dad are going to pass away.
Right.
Sooner than my brother and I. And it will be the longest relationship I've ever had with anyone.
Yeah. And
so nurturing and maintaining that relationship is and has become a really big part of my life. And I know your sister and I know the situation. And if she's listening, Liz, come back home.
Come on home. I love you. I think that like I was saying, shaping that as a parent when they're younger is just so important. Not creating healthy competition, not pitting each other against one another. And when they do have, arguments, help them work through it. What kind of language do we use when we work through different things? Teach them, model it. And that's things that I do in my home. For my little two, I tell them you're best friends for life. And that's something that they have latched onto. And they really do treat each other that way. Yeah. And they love each other so much. And I've loved seeing that blossom. And I think that fills a little piece of me that's missing right now.
Yeah. I look at my family and all the different relationships because we have the wide range of ages too. We're grandparents now. But it's really beautiful to watch each of them have their own unique relationship with one another. And in a blended family, we are super lucky because they all genuinely like each other. We've been navigating all this stuff for our will, and it's stirred up a lot of what ifs and
what do we do?
Not great feelings about dying, but we all are going to transition at some point. And, my hope is that these kids will continue to focus and work on these bonds because it is fundamental to their life's experience.
Absolutely. I agree.
So let's go back to your book a little bit. What is the core message of your book, Montessori as a Lifestyle?
My core message is it's not about the things. When you want to bring Montessori in your home, it doesn't have to be getting the wooden toys. It doesn't have to be getting the shelf. You don't even have to start there. It's about the mindset shift. And it's giving parents that language for that. And what does that look like? What does it feel like? How are we flipping some of these scripts of how we treat our children in our home? We all are handed a blueprint from our parenting experience as children, and sometimes it's not one we asked for. Mm-hmm. And when we become conscious and understand that, we can change and we can shift our minds to a different way of thinking that creates resilient, capable, independent, confident children that are lifelong learners. That's what I'm trying to do here.
Well, I think that's great. Many people don't realize that Montessori's writings were deeply spiritual. Why was it important to you to weave faith back into the conversation?
Several of her books were incredibly spiritual in the sense of talking about the spirit of the child. She was Catholic. I'm also Catholic. But a lot of those writings were all taken out many years ago throughout her books or softened, I think for, larger consumption or
Right.
that's my guess. I think there's like one publisher that still has her books as they truly were. And later in my life, I have found faith again. I think through my hardships and my trauma and things growing up, I lost that piece of me.
Mm-hmm.
And I, again, in this modern world, there's so much heartache and disconnection. I think faith brings people together in a different way. And I wanted to bring that back to Montessori because it's not out there. A lot of people have no idea.
If a parent is listening and they feel overwhelmed, behind, or discouraged, what would you want them to hear?
I would want them to know they're not behind. I want them to know that it's never too late. Even when it feels impossible, when it feels hard, and you feel like you just want to fall on the floor, you can figure it out. You can repair. You can choose to do different. But it's that curiosity that you never want to let that flame go out. You keep staying curious, and you're going to keep growing, and you're going to keep that connection with your children.
Yeah.
And keep moving forward.
I think that that's important for parents to hear, certainly mothers,
Give yourself grace.
Yeah. Yeah. What's something you now understand about parenting and happiness that you wish you could tell your younger self?
Just let go of the towel folding. I think people like me, I've always kind of identified as like a type A person, which is, controlling, detail-oriented, and not everybody's that way, and that's okay.
There's room for everyone.
It's fine. If someone doesn't want to get this done that way, that's okay. And letting go of that control, because when I'm able to let go of the control, that's when I find more joy.
Yeah.
And I always tell my children, always search for joy, because where there's joy, there's love.
Yeah. Well, and you're in that divine feminine when we're flowing and we're not doing and checking things off our list and
those
and
lists.
that masculine, then it's so easy to receive and see how effortless life can actually be. And of course we need both.
Right.
But stepping into that and just flowing is amazing.
It is. It
so good.
Feels good.
Where can listeners connect with you and learn more about your work?
Yeah. I'm always posting on social, on Instagram, Faye.theMontiMama, and TikTok. And you can also find my parent coaching information on www.fayekhoury.com. And I have links for my book and on those platforms.
Perfect. And when this releases, we'll make sure that we have all that information so people can go and find this, all the new and existing mothers out there that have an interest in this work. Well, I want to thank you for coming and sharing not only about Montessori, but a little bit about you and what led you to this Montessori school way. And I just thank you very much for being here. I love you to pieces.
Thank you. I love you too, Hoof Sister.
Woo!